Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to YouTube Mall Builders Tuesday night general hangout. Tuesday's presentations, excuse me. Or we have Bill Bronick tonight, the track planner. I don't know why I'm reading the Thursday night script. That's not a good thing to do, so let's throw that thing over here, get it out of the way. Anyway, well, welcome you to the show. As everybody knows, Google is getting rid of the Hangouts on there, and we're trying out a new system, and that's what we're running tonight. And hopefully, we're getting this right. Each show seems to be getting better. We have less glitches. So, if you need to just go to the YouTube post, and that will take you straight to the show where you have the chat. Chat replaces Q&A. Put your questions in the chat section or comments, and we'll get to them from there. I want to say that we are the proud sponsor of the online magazine, the eMag, that comes out bi-monthly. We got one coming out this month, right around the middle of the month. We also have the Thursday night hangouts every week. Then we also have the live show. That's third Saturday of the month, and that's always an interesting show. This month, we've already had a meeting today, got the contract signed in blood with Kathy Millett. We're doing a special show, and that will air 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Standard Time on Saturday the 17th of this month. And later that night, you'll have the regular Saturday night live show at 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. That'll be 9 o'clock Central Daylight. The special show will be at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time. I apologize for the confusion. I'm having to wing this a little bit tonight. But all the shows, the Tuesday presentations, Thursday night show, and the Saturday night live show, all of them are at 9 o'clock Central Daylight Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And tonight's show, we've got, like I said, Mr. Bill Bronick here, the track planner. And he says something about, I think, Krispy Kreme donuts. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Mr. Bill. The show is yours. Yeah, hang on, Bill. Well, okay, let's get back over here to this. Yeah, yeah, everybody stand by for a second. Some reason or another, I'm not capturing the audio, so I need to work on that for a second. If you'll give me a moment. Uh, I got the source set to audio input capture. I got the window. Oh, okay, hang on. Display capture. Yeah, I just saw that in the chat. Alright, I got display capture on. How's that sounding? Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Cause we had that turned off on the last show. How about audio input capture? Audio input capture number 1. Alright. Yeah, what's happening is it only gives me my microphones I have here on this computer, so. Huh? No, let me get rid of that. Alright. Alright. Output. Huh? What about audio? Alright, desktop audio source. I need to set that Sound Blaster, don't I? 'Cause it's coming through the Sound Blaster card.
Mixer items there.
I need to set that Sound Blaster, don't I? 'Cause it's coming through the. I barely can read that, Andy.
Okay.
I need to set that Sound Blaster. Alright, something happened there. I heard everything go loud.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Got it. You got it.
Okay, I'm getting bad feedback from you. It's killing my ears on this headset.
I can hear the feedback too.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the echo, but I had to be able to hear that audio stream, so good deal.
Yeah.
You think we're okay now?
Yeah. Andy said he's here. Give me a thumbs up, Andy, if you're hearing that. Yep, we got you.
Yes, sir.
That was a setting on my side I didn't catch right there. So.
Okay. So we'll start it over.
Yeah, we didn't have about a minute or two, if you don't mind.
Oh no, I'm fine. We'll go with it. There. As I was saying earlier, I'm not a fan of donut hole layouts. I try to avoid them at all costs. However, I had a client who gave me no choice but to design one for him. So I thought, I did it. It turned out pretty well. So I thought, let's do a program on donut holes since I don't like them, but I did design one. So I'm going to go to a screen share and we're going to go through about maybe a 20-minute or 25-minute presentation here. I've instructed Johnny, if there's questions come up during it, to interrupt me, and we'll try to answer them there. So first, let's see if we can screen share. That's number 1. Can everybody see it?
No.
You can't.
Well, let me get that. All right, I'm seeing it here on the hangout screen.
Okay, it's showing up on mine.
Yeah, hang on. Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, it should be up there now. Yeah. All right, I got it muted now so that people wouldn't hear me on the phone. Let me go tell Bill to take off. He's got it going now. Bill, go ahead. Will you show us up now?
It's up now? Okay. Thank you. What we're going to do here is we're going to just go through a series of slides.
All right, I want to hang up.
About donut hole, designing a donut hole layout for operations here. Now, Tonight's show, I'm going to define what a donut hole layout is. We'll talk about the disadvantages of it. We'll talk about designing a donut hole layout with prototypical operations as a focal point, which is really hard to do when you're designing donut hole layouts. I always like to do a disclaimer, folks, because it keeps me out of trouble more than anything else. I don't like donut holes. It's my least favorite. I try to avoid them if at all possible. I only design them as a last resort. For anybody that's watching the show tonight that's new to the hobby, I hope this presentation will at least help you avoid making some of the mistakes that I see constantly with donut hole layouts. And I have people send me a lot of donut holes and say, improve this for me. And it's really, really tough. So let's get started here. What is a donut hole? Contrary to popular belief, this is not a donut hole layout, okay? It doesn't look bad with the sprinkles on it, though. I have to admit that. Interesting thing, when I drew this up, this layout actually would operate. There, you can run 2 trains. You can run them in opposite directions. You can switch the industries. It's even got a passenger station. It actually would work on a very limited basis. But that's not a donut hole, folks. Here's my dislikes with donut hole layouts. Normally the center opening is too small. The operator seems like he's always or she's always standing in one place and is just standing there turning in circles as they watch the train run around in a circle. Okay. I watch them build the bench work way too wide. That seems to be a common error that's done, which makes reaching into the corners very difficult. And in some cases, it makes it absolutely impossible, depending on how wide they've built the bench work. I've seen many of them where they don't include a lift out or a drop down, and the operators crawl under the layout. I'm 70 years old. I don't crawl under a layout anymore. Okay. And I think it's a really bad design. This is what I consider to be the classic donut hole layout. It's got a lot going on, but there's also a lot of problems with this design, and that's what we're going to talk about here for the next couple of slides, is what's wrong with this particular design, even though this would work. This design would work, but you could not operate it in what I consider to be a prototypical manner. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions of donut hole layouts. On this particular one here, these are the things I hear all the time. People say, it makes the best use of available space. That's false. That is absolutely not true on that. I'll be happy to argue with anybody anytime on that. You can install more track within a given space. Not true either. That's not true. You may think you're putting a lot of track in there, but you're really not. Doesn't require complex bench work. That's really true, because all we're dealing with here are square modules, and the bench work is pretty easy, and it goes up fast, and a lot of things that are going on with donut hole layouts involve getting things up fast, getting trains running, and that's true also. Can trains operate prototypically? Seldom is that true. Do I find very few layouts that are donut holes that'll operate prototypically. Let's evaluate this one here, at least go through with things that I see wrong with it. All the curves are set at 90 degrees. Every curve is a 90-degree curve here on it. That's not very interesting. All the track is parallel to the bench work. That's another thing that I think doesn't make for an interesting track plan. The mountains, to me, look toy-like. When we were kids and we bought the Lionel set, and they had the paper mache tunnels that went in one end and went in one side, come out the other side. That's what this tunnel reminds me of here. The bench work is way too wide here for what's going on, especially if you get back into the corners where those mountains are. Unless this was freestanding in the middle of a room, you'd never be able to reach back in some of those corners there. The 3-track lift out, that's not a good idea. I'm a really big fan of lift outs, but not 3-track lift outs. You're just asking for trouble there. And it's very hard on this particular design to do prototypical operations. Let's talk about that. Here's what I see as operating problems. There's not enough crossovers. The only 2 crossovers on this layout are up there at the top around 12 o'clock, and they're too close together. They need to be spread out a little bit there. They don't have to be that close. One of the big problems is the yard lead is way too short. If you were going to be switching that yard and you were pulling back any kind of number of cars, you're going to go out and follow that inner main line every time. That's something you don't want to do. You couldn't have a train running on that inner main line continuously, and if you were trying to switch that yard, it just won't work. The layout is really designed to operate in one direction, counterclockwise. When you look at all the industries, you look at everything is based on a counterclockwise running. Something that I don't know if even it was thought about, if you leave the yard and you want to get back to the yard with a train, you've got to back that yard there. You could come in head first, but it would be a little bit difficult to get the trains in that, to get unhooked. The other problem with it is all the industries are trailing points. There's no facing points, which kind of doesn't make for, to me, a very interesting plan. Okay, let's talk about the one I designed for a client there, and we'll go through what the client wanted and what we ended up with. What kind of space did we have? Believe it or not, when I first talked to him, I thought I was really doing good, because he says, I got 22 to 25 feet long. And I thought, boy, this is going to be great. Then he hit me with 6 foot wide on one end and 5 foot wide on the other. Boy, that's more like a hot dog shape than a donut shape as far as I was concerned. The room that it was going to be in was shared by the family rec room. There was a laundry room, and there was a downstairs basement there. This is what the client wanted on this layout. He wanted prototypical freight operations. He wanted continuous running. He wanted a city scene. He wanted numerous industries. He wanted a passenger serve. He wanted a sorting yard. He wanted an engine servicing and car repair shop. And to top the whole thing off, he wanted hidden staging. There. Oh. Sounds like an impossibility, but it wasn't. This is the room. This is the space he had there. Again, this is just part of the basement. This is like a quarter of his basement there. That black dot right in the center of the picture, that's a sewer pipe that comes down from upstairs, right in the middle of this room there. So that added to the problems and the issues that we were going to have. So, my mouse just froze up a little bit. This is originally what he told me I had to work with. 22 feet, 5 foot on one end, 6 foot on the other end. I tried to do a couple designs, nothing was working. So I went back to him and I said, can we come up with a little more space? And he said, how much? And I says, can I get 18 inches? Can I get you to go up to 18 inches more at the 6 foot area there? Go up to 90 inches wide. He checked with his wife. She said, yes, that would be fine. So what you see now was the final area I had to work with. We maintained the 5 foot on the right, but I did go to 7 foot 6 inches on the left, and we added 3 foot section out there on the end for him that we were able to pick up to that little space. That actually worked out pretty well. So I've got a little better space, a little bigger space to work with now. Okay. Now, let's talk about operating the layout. Whoops, I jumped ahead here. It went back on me. I wonder why my screen, I've lost some of my files here. I've got to, let me go through here and see, guys, for a minute. Okay. Bear with me for a minute while I bring up. I thought this was going to work fine.
That's okay. I'll go ahead and make an announcement while you
Make an announcement.
that.
I'm going to bring this up, get her back up here.
All righty. Just want to let everybody know that we're on the new show format now. So you have the chat on the YouTube channel right there where you're watching the show live at. So put your comments and questions in there so that we could get those posted up. Hope. Well, I've been sitting there talking away. Y'all have to excuse me. I've got to. I've got 6 different screens up and going here. One screen mutes my mic, the other one doesn't.
It's funny. Tony says, "Isn't the point of a mountain to go in one side, out the other?"
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, I am unmuted here. Okay, I got to mute myself in 2 different places and close one eye and pick up one foot and hop around to get this done. As everybody noticed, we're on the new show program here. Now you only go to one location to see the show, and we have the chat feature there so that you can don't have to move around. It's still about the same. I want to tell you, just go ahead and enter your questions and comments in the chat there. Unfortunately, whoever's in the hangout on the panel does not see this chat, so it will be the director's job to read the questions off so that they know what the people are asking. But we're getting all this worked out. Well,
Okay, I'm back again, Johnny.
Okay. So we're back to Bill now. I'll mute myself back out to keep the echoes down.
Can everybody see the screen, Johnny? Can everybody see what's going on?
They should be able to. Yeah.
Have we screen shared it again?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's published.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me step back here for a minute since I messed you guys up. This is what I was able to, the final footprint, so to speak, that we were able to, area we were able to come up with there to work with. What you're looking at now is pretty much the final bench work. And what you're seeing is any area that is green is where it's going to be the visible portion of the layout. The brown area is going to be hidden staging, and that blue line is about a 32-inch high view block. The stairway that comes into this basement is actually just about where the word blue line is. So when people would come down the stairs, they're going to see the staging yard, which I told him he could scenic if he wanted to, or he could leave it unscenic. You walk over, you go through the lift out that goes over there, then you're inside the layout, and that blue line will completely hide the staging yard. So when you're inside the layout, you're not going to be seeing the staging area at all. Okay, there's the track, there's the final footprint for the track plan there, and some things I want to talk about here. You'll see the staging yard is double-ended there. That's so we can run trains in both directions. Notice the track. There's not a whole lot of track on this thing that runs perfectly straight and perfectly parallel to the bench work. I've thrown a lot of angles into it. That at least keeps the track plan interesting. It makes it, well, I think, much more interesting, and you're just not running around in a circle. In this case, a hot dog circle is what we've got. Notice too in that blue line that I was able to wrap around the sewer pipe so that when you're in the visible area of the layout, the scenic part of the layout, the pipe is not in there. It's been wrapped by the view block there. So what we have on this, if you can see the cursor here, we've got a yard up here. We've got along the back here, and I'll show you this with all the scenery on it in a minute, is a long track where I've got a bunch of background buildings there. Well, I've included everything he wanted on this layout and that, plus actually a little more. But this is the overall track plan that we ended up doing. And there you see it, finished product with everything there. I'm going to blow this up a little bit here so we can talk about some of these areas here. Again, here's your staging yard with your tracks. And I was able to maintain also on this layout all number 6s and nothing smaller than a number 5 turnout here. There's no number 4s on this layout at all. Along the back here is where you see all those background buildings. There's 4 places to spot cars there. There's another place to spot one spot over here at the salvage company. We've got a propane company. We've got Medusa Cement. We've got another company here. We have another one. We have a lot of switching areas on this layout. Lots of places to switch. There's the city scene. What is this? This is the diesel servicing facility. And up here in the corner is the car shop that he wanted on the layout there. And so Walter's car shop. What are these guys? He also wanted a mobile home park. So I put a mobile home park in this for him there. I want to go over to the other side because there's an interesting thing that I like to do. It's a design feature that I think works very, very well. You see this interstate highway bridge here. What that does, that serves 2 or 3 purposes. First thing it does is it breaks up the layout into couple sections. It kind of divides the yard from the rest of the layout. But it actually serves a much more important purpose. Right underneath this interstate highway is the sharpest curved track on the layout. I think it's clear down at about 20-inch curve. I had to curve it that much to get into this salvage yard. By placing this interstate bridge over that sharp curve, you don't really see it when you're looking at it because the cars that are being switched into that industry are underneath that bridge, and it's just a little way to hide what is otherwise, I think, much, much too sharp of a turn going into an industry there. And that industry would only take maybe 40-foot cars or at the most 50-foot cars. So it would work. It would work fine. Again, there's that sewer pipe that I wrapped the view block around. Here's an Amtrak station. He wants to run an Amtrak train. That's there. I even added in a couple little houses to kind of make the layout. I always like to make the layout look like there's people involved. It just isn't trains there. But the key to this is the angles that I used for everything here, and then the prototypical operations that this layout will go with. Okay, let's talk about operating. I suggested to him that he could run 6 to 8 trains on this layout. 2 through freights, 2 locals, 1 or 2 turns, and the Amtrak passenger train. And I'll go through those and explain them to you. The through freights would operate, they originate in the hidden staging area. They would leave staging, and they can leave in either direction. It doesn't make any difference. They will make 2 or 3 laps around this layout. Now, why do we do that? Because I'm trying to create time and distance. And that's a tough thing to do on a donut hole layout, is create any time, any distance. So what you do, and I've seen this done on numerous layouts, you actually take and run a couple laps around the layout before the train does what it's supposed to really do. What does a through freight do? It stops at that on-yard layout that was on the layout. It drops off and picks up cars from that yard. It does not do any switching on the layout. All it does is drops cars off at the yard and picks cars up. When it gets done doing that, it makes another 2 or 3 laps around the layout, heads right back into staging, and for that off session, that train is done. And we would have 2, as I advised the client, we could have 2 through freights, one going in each direction, running at different times during an off session. What do the locals do? A little different operation. They originated in the staging also. They're in the staging yard. Now, think back for a second, and maybe you didn't even count, but it's important to at least tell you this. That's a 5-track staging yard. I'm using 4 tracks for freight trains and 1 track for the Amtrak passenger train. Again, locals, they originate in staging. They can leave staging again in either direction, make the 2 laps or 3 laps or whatever. Then they terminate in that sorting yard. They actually terminate, they drop off all of their cars. Locals are not through freights coming from clear across the country. They're coming from somewhere else. All of this is off layout. These are all areas off the layout, but they're bringing their whole consist to this yard. Later in the op session, a new consist would be made up to take cars off the layout there to go somewhere else. That's the local's job. It would do the same thing. It would hook. There would be a new train made up. It would go out, make a couple laps around this layout, and then terminate back in staging. Because it's a double-ended staging yard, everybody needs to understand this layout automatically restages itself. You don't have to go out after an op session and restage cars. It does it automatically. Again, the turns don't, let me step back here. I'm slightly ahead of myself. The locals don't do any on layout switching. They don't switch industries on the layout. All they do is bring cars from the staging to the sorting yard. That's their only job there. Now, the turns. Turns are exactly what they say they are. They originate in the sorting yard. They leave the yard with cars that are destined for on layout industries. And on this layout, again, we have about 10 industries for him to be able to switch. They deliver and they pick up cars from those online industries. They return to the sorting yard with the cars, and those cars are then destined for off the layout. They would get taken off the layout either by the locals or the through freights, depending on, and again, I would use a car card system on this operating sessions for this layout. And they could go either with the through freights, they could go with the locals there. Now, he was adamant that he wanted a passenger train, so I gave him one. Again, it'll originate in staging. It'll leave staging, can leave in either direction, doesn't make any difference. Does the same thing, goes around the layout 2 or 3 laps, stops at the Amtrak passenger station there. Then it can make another couple laps around the layout and then heads back into staging. There's another possibility with this passenger train that I think would be more interesting with it, and I'll talk about it here in this picture here. Here's the Amtrak passenger station. I've got the runaround track, so a passenger train can be sitting on this track, and this layout will still operate. There's dual main line right through there, so the freight trains can get by. But what I would do with this is I would run the train in a clockwise direction, so it would come out of staging and run around the layout here, eventually stop here. Then I would unhook the motive power off of this, and I would run the motive power all the way over into this engine servicing facility. I would have it serviced. The passenger train sits on that track. It isn't hurting anything. It isn't only thing it's doing, and it is taking up space. It doesn't affect the switching of even this industry, because this could be switched even with the train on there. It doesn't affect this industry, so it really isn't hurting a whole lot. Give it maybe 15, 20 minutes, a half hour into the op session. The engines have been serviced. They come back out. They back up. They hook onto the train. They run around a couple times, and they go back into the staging yard. And we've run 6 to 8 trains on this layout, and I think we would probably have a minimum of a 2.5 to 3 hour op session with a donut hole layout. Okay, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm done.
Okay.
Okay.
I know.
I'm going to leave this picture up for just a little bit, Johnny, in case there's questions.
All right, so let me get over here and unmute myself to make sure everybody can hear me talking now. So you could probably have possibly 2 people comfortably. 3 people would be almost a crowd on this.
Yeah, two. I would suggest 2. Well, you could have 3, but it would be a little tight. That aisle space is 30 inches. So
yeah,
it's a little tight.
Big Bill got on here. The turns would be switching the industries, right?
Correct. The turns do the work at the industries, and what you can do on this layout, I excuse me, I suggested it on Bill's layout, and I think it's going to work out fine. I would divide this layout into halves, however you want to do it. Half the industries would get switched by a westbound turn. Half the industries could get switched by an eastbound turn. That's why you could have 2 turns running out of this this yard. And this is the sorting yard right here, guys. That's what we've been talking about when I said the sorting yard. This is the area. Now, as opposed to that donut hole layout, let me show you about that. Here's the yard lead all the way around here for this yard. And what you can see here is this is just as long as the longest track there is in that yard. So we would never run into a problem where we would have such a long, be trying to switch a long string of cars that we'd end up out here fouling the main line right here. That's why you want a yard lead that is at least as long as your longest yard track.
Okay.
We'll go back over. I want to go back over to the city here because I want to talk about that. Notice what I did with the city is I put it on an angle. Again, I love angles because I think it's, first of all, it's much more interesting, and it takes the squareness out of the layout. It doesn't make the layout look just real blocky, and that it just adds, I think, a different perspective to it. Okay.
Yeah, but I tend to do the same thing, and I especially so I got a couple points or questions for you, and then I got one challenge for you too, if you'll take it.
Sure.
So first, everything on my layout drifts in and out, and for the same amount of track distance, actually, ever so slightly more mathematically, if you drift in and out, you gain a little bit more track distance. It's an immeasurable small amount, but I find that it makes the layout feel like you're traveling a lot more if there's more interaction between the train and you as it drifts in and out.
Right.
Second is especially about your curve radii, and I've seen you do this on numerous layouts to hide curve radii, especially steeper radii in certain areas, and the bridge idea. Something I also noticed, and I've heard other modelers talk about, Mike Confalone and some others talk about, actually I think it was Joe Fugit that pointed it out about Mike Confalone's layout, that he had done something on purpose by putting the much steeper radius curves on where you stand to the inside of them.
Correct.
They don't feel as bad. Now, this layout doesn't have them, but for many of us that have peninsulas, etc., when you're on the outside of a curve, you need a larger radius to look the same, because the overhang is what makes it look so unrealistic of any piece of size equipment. But putting a steeper on the inside. Also, people tend to do consistent radius. They have a 24 minimum or a 28 minimum, and that's what radius all their curves are.
That's right.
I don't do that at all. Mine vary all over the place, even in parts of the curve. In the part that's close to the edge of the layout, I did a 36, and I run that for a little ways, and I sharpened it down to a 30. I could have had a 32 or 33 if I made it consistent, but you see the large radius, not the steeper part.
Right.
So now I got one challenge for you.
Sure.
You want to comment on that stuff before I growl at you?
Well, only comment I was going to make, Andy, and this is just something I do to kind of give illusions. We've got this building sitting here, this industry sitting here, and if you'll notice, I changed directions on the main line behind that building. So the trains are coming in, if we use north, south, east, west here, the trains would be, if they're running counterclockwise, would come in heading southeast. When they get past that building, all of a sudden they're heading northeast instead of southeast. That helps make it, I think, much more interesting there.
Yeah, that directionally pure thing that I used to hear people talk about it. And your magazine article that's coming up in the upcoming e-mag is really interesting. Of course, Alan McClellan was any of us that grew up in the era of Alan McClellan, excuse me, any of us that grew up in the era of Alan McClellan are Alan McClellan modelers. So
that's how I designed.
And people who grew up in the John Allen era, and don't get me wrong, John Allen was one of the first impressive layouts I've ever seen. those people who grew up in that era. That was the type of modeling. He set the bar. Alan McClellan set the bar for the majority of my life as an up and coming modeler. And people have taken the bar from him, like Mike Confalone and some of these others, but Joe Fugit, etc. But he really, Alan McClellan set a certain bar, and that directionally pure thing that I see it. Sure, I get it. I understand what he's saying. I did not attribute how valuable that was. And my layout here is the first layout where I've ever employed the directionally pure concept. And I'm not even operating it yet. And it feels so much more sensible to me when I'm standing there playing with it, working on it, putting down static graphs. I'm thinking about that sense.
Yeah. And the other thing that I have a hard time explaining to people, and even when I talk to them on the phone, this gentleman here, this is his first real layout. He had built a layout in this space, and he had sent me pictures, and it was basically the simple donut hole. Then he did a bunch of add-ons, and as soon as you start trying to add on to a donut hole, you got big problems with it. And that's what he found out. The hardest thing for me to explain to him is that staging yard. And again, this goes back to what you said about Alan McClellan. That staging yard is, in my mind, is not even in the same room. That's beyond the basement.
Yeah, it's in Georgia or something.
Yeah, it's somewhere else. And I've got 2 tunnels on there, and I just try to explain to people, you're standing in this aisle, and as soon as a train heads into this tunnel and goes into this staging yard, it's gone. It's no longer around. And just like when a train comes out, it's coming from somewhere, and it just happens to be coming onto your lap. I think the great thing that Alan did, which really kind of got me, and I wrote about it, I think, in the article in the EMEG. He used to talk about, you never heard Alan say much about he owned a model railroad. He would say, I have a transportation system. That was the word he used. This is a transportation system. It's not a model railroad. And
we called the railroad by name, as you know.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of people
thought
railroad. Yeah.
They thought it was a real railroad. They absolutely.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of people who did. There's been a lot, and that's an incredible measure of success that only a few people ever get the glory of pulling off. Joe Fugit had recently explained on a series on operating his railroad that he did recently, where he went rail fanning with guys that operated and helped construction on his layout. And there's a part of his layout that's proto freelance, where he stretched his imagination a little bit, but it's still based on a prototype originally. And they would go through a section where his railroad goes on the model, but on the prototype it does not. And they're like, well, where was the road bed here? He's like, no, it wasn't. But that's the best accreditation anybody could get, was that all the guys who operate your railroad have such a sense of it being in the real world that when they get out in the real world, they can't understand why your railroad's not there.
That's right. Well, you look at this little space back here at the top of the layout, which would be against an outside wall, excuse me, on his layout. I've got 4 industries right there on one piece of track that can be switched and can be taken care of. And
they're a lot more challenging and enjoyable if you have to switch certain cars, move cars out of the way. Something the real railroad does too is using time schedules. A certain car can only be switched during certain periods of time when the business is open, and there's a lot of things you can do to add a challenge and a complexity to it.
That's right. And then one thing, and I've mentioned this before on some of my shows, but I think it's really worth repeating because it makes a big difference. This turnout right here, folks, that turnout right there, that's a double slip switch. Now, when you go buy that from Walters, it's going to cost you about $85 to buy that turnout. Yeah. But that turnout saves you 1.5 feet of space on this layout to put a yard in. I would never have been able to put this yard in here if I had just used number 6 turnouts like you see up here and tried to do the same thing. Because what a double slip does, for people that don't understand, is a train can be coming in on this outside track. It can come in to take the diverging track. When it gets onto this, it actually has 2 options. It can stay straight and go into the yard, or you can go this way here. Same thing when you're switching, like when I said about the yard lead. When this yard is being switched, the yard switcher is always using this leg and this leg here. on there. Their yard switcher could pull back out here quite a ways with his train stop. There could be a train coming this direction or this direction, and it can get on back out and go around it, get around it. That $84 switch really isn't $84 because think about, you would have to buy 2 or 3 more switches to do what one switch did right there. And
you need 4 switches at a diamond to ultimately replicate it, but you could use 2 in a cheaper way. But like you said, you lose 1.5 foot. And how much would it cost you to add 1.5 foot to your house? A lot more than $84.
Yeah, well, and the problem for me as the designer is then it makes this whole yard 1.5 foot shorter.
Oh yeah, but I find a lot of interest in just the way they look. Of course, as a railroad guy, I like them.
Right.
I think people a lot of times try to fit them in just for the heck of it, or because they like the look of them. And you should only use them when the railroad would have used them. The railroad don't like complicated track work, but they had to have it sometimes. Well, those big passenger depots with 60 or 70 double slips, that's a work of engineering art.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh yeah.
I could have easily made this a double-ended yard, but I deliberately didn't do it for a couple reasons. I expected to be a lot of traffic over here with engines coming in and out of this engine servicing facility, and I expected to be whoever with the yard master would be. He'd be pretty busy over here sorting cars in and out of here. I wanted those 2 areas separated, so if we did have, say, 3 operators on this layout, one person is standing here working the yard, another one can be over here, be a hostler working the engines in and out of the service facility. They're not bumping against each other because there's no reason for the yard master to be working this yard to have to come over to this side, and there's no reason for the guy working this diesel facility to be coming clear down there. They don't trip over each other. So that
the engine guy, the yard master needs to go to his hole and stay in it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And a third position, if you do kind of the European style of operation, which I'm kind of fascinated by, is having a kind of a hostler working the staging yard and building the outbound trains. And he could stand by the lift out and run a train out of the layout. So it would be a way to get 3 people around the layout with one of them staying outside of the loop.
Well, I'm sure some of the people that are listening are aware of John Parker's BSFN Fall River Division layout, which is about 40 minutes from my house here. I operate on that layout, and to have a full-blown op session on John's layout, it takes 21 operators to make it fully work.
Wow.
I'm on the extra board a lot of times, and what happens is I sit in the crew lounge and the phone rings, and I'll pick up the phone and it'll say, Bill, you're going to be running such and such a train. I go out to the main yard. That train has already been put together by a yard master who has put it together. Another guy has brought the engines out and hooked the engines onto the train. That train is ready to leave that yard when I walk out there. My job is to run that train, not to put it together, not to move the engines around. They're separate people that do all that work. If that is not exactly like a real railroad operates, I don't know what is.
Yep, just like it. The only difference is you didn't have to burn $10 in gas and get out of bed at 4 a.m. But short of that, you bastard it.
And it was air conditioned and it was nice and comfortable.
Yeah, there was a modeler some years ago said that to reach more prototypical, he wanted to start calling his operators at 4 a.m. and wake them up for the extra.
Yeah, Phil Wyman was asking, how big is the staging?
The staging yard, well, these squares are 1 foot. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 feet, which means that he would, if he's running, I think he wanted to run transition era here. He didn't want to run a whole lot of steam, but he didn't want to run big, heavy modern equipment. If you got a 10-foot long staging track and you're running, say, 50s and 60s, it's pretty easy to have an 8 or 10 car train without any problem at all. And this layout here, an 8 to 10 car train is more than long enough. There, I realize. Yeah, I realize a lot of this YouTube community likes to talk about 30 car, 40 car trains. So far, I have not seen many layouts that people have where they should be running even 15 car trains.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah,
30
a
or
lot
40
of the people that we have, they're running modern trains too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they
And
like. Chris Healy on his, he's
but yeah,
running
but
about a 40.
Chris has got a whole freaking basement, and that he's most of the people that I deal with, my clients, like this one right here. This is about a fourth of his basement that I was able to use, and we had to negotiate with the wife to get this 18 inches right here for this staging. And think about it, if I wasn't able to put that staging yard in there, this layout isn't really very interesting. It's just like any other donut hole layout as far as I'm concerned. But that staging yard changes this from just trains running in a circle to operating like a railroad.
I think I could pull 25 cars off on mine because I put helixes all through the layout, single turn helixes to absorb trade length. But you really have to get exotic. More than 20 cars, you have to get pretty eccentric to do it.
Well, and the other thing, Andy, is what people aren't willing to do, and I understand that. I understand it, but they aren't willing to do what I did. I went from having a 25 by 25 foot layout, the square foot area to build a layout, running late 80s equipment, 6 axles. Everything was 6, a few 4 axles, but most of it was all 6 axles. There wasn't any AC 44s because I wasn't in that era, but I had a lot of SDs and stuff like that. When I sold that property and I moved into town, I went from 25 by 25 to 16 by 13.
You're in the same space I'll be in. About 15 by 15.
There was no way I could run 1980s equipment and operate like I wanted to operate in 16 by 13 space. So I sold everything. I sold it all. And now my layout is 1955. And it's all 40-foot cars, four axle engines, and it works fine.
Which by steam, big steam, but small cars. And I had to, which when I first started building this one at 15 by 15, I didn't think I could build anything I'd be happy with in this size. The last layout that I built for myself was 28 by 36, and I didn't see that as huge then, but now with all the work it's taken me to build this, having a full-time job, it's bigger than.
And I don't know if anybody has caught it yet, Andy. Maybe you didn't even catch it either. There's one thing that's built on this layout that I try to avoid it at all possible, and there was no way to avoid it with this layout right here. And it's a simple thing, and your eye doesn't even pick it up till someone.
I had a challenge for you. I wonder if it's my challenge. Go for it.
Right there.
Oh, the turnout on a lift out.
Turnout on a lift out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's a little harder to hide a servo, but if you make it, or a tortoise, but if you put a servo or make it manual, it's not a catastrophe.
Well, this layout here will operate perfectly fine without one tortoise. The only place they would maybe need tortoises is if they put them in the yard so they didn't have to walk around and turn them. But this whole layout, the way it's designed, there's no place that this turnout can't be reached by hand. Yeah. So it would be foolish in my book to put tortoises out on the visible part. Plus, the other thing is when you have hand throws, that slows people down.
Absolutely. I preach about that a lot, is that we ought to the railroad operates much slower and more intentional, and we should do the same.
That's right. We're trying to slow them down to create that time and distance thing I always talk about.
All right, so I got a challenge for you on it too.
Okay, you go ahead.
So I love to bring up things in any of the Hangouts live or otherwise that other people have talked about. We've talked about, had some interest in, talked about various opinions of. This makes a good case for it. There's a good example of it in front of us. And what better guy to ask than you? The concept of diverging route priority for setting turnouts onto a layout. I have the philosophy that other than like narrow gauge layouts and some of those where they didn't really care, 20 miles an hour, it doesn't really matter, that the prototype pretty much always tries to navigate the straight side of a turnout. And we've talked about this with several just regular Hangouts lately. And since there's a few cases on this layout where the main line does navigate the diverging route,
there's a lot of places. There's a lot of places. Well, here, I'll go through them with you. Right up here. That's those numbers that you see. Hopefully, you can see those numbers.
Yes, sir.
That's a number 7. That's a Walther's number 7.
But it is a curved.
It is a curve.
I get on a curved turnout. Sometimes the tighter radius happens to be the main line, but with a curved turnout, both sides are diverging.
I very seldom try to design a layout with a number 6.5 curved turnout. Now up here, this is diverging up here.
Yeah, both of those 6s are.
That's right. This one here, it depends on what you want to call the main. Do you want to call it going past the depot, the main line? Well, if you do, then this is not diverging.
I agree. You're straight through all the way through there.
But if this is, I consider this to be the passing siding, is what I consider that to be. Except when there's a passenger train, if like I said on the operations part of it, you got the passenger train sitting here. Then you're going to have to, if you got a freight train running around, he's going to have to use that track.
But he would do that at restricted speed anyway. Because
it would all be done at restricted. That's exactly right. It's all done at restricted speed.
That's what it comes down to, speed. It doesn't matter otherwise. But if you have a main line going through diverging routes, on the prototype, they had to go to 25 miles an hour or whatever, depending on the era, they had to go to restricted speed. And they like to keep up at 55 or whatever. So like at the Yardley, at the left side by the car shops, I understand why you did it, because it gains you a whole lot more usable space as opposed to trying to shoehorn the correct right-hand turnout to get into the engine shop or the car shop, and left to get into that 4 industry spur. But what's your general take on it? Does it bother you too bad to do it that way? You consider it a decent sacrifice or what?
Well, again, with the space I had to deal with here, I had to sacrifice a lot of different things here.
Absolutely.
And here's a great example that is a sacrifice. We've got 4 industries that need to be switched, and depending on how you had a car card system working, it could take some time switching it. Every time they switch these industries, they foul the main. There.
Yeah.
They can use this track to do it, but they still got to follow the main. I would have loved to have designed this and brought everything down, brought all this track work down by 6 inches, so that this track back here would have been by itself, not attached to the main. It would have had to gone through maybe another runaround track. But because of, again, remember, this is 7.5 feet is all I got here, from here to here. So these are the compromises you put up with. Also, something I didn't mention that this gentleman mentioned to me, which maybe affected me a little bit, is he thinks he will be running this by himself or maybe with one other person there. So if there's only, especially if you're by yourself, you can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
you can.
Now, this may not even be the best example of a layout, because I totally understand why you did it on this one. But since we've talked about it so much on the Hangouts, I just kind of wanted to get you to chime in on our discussion that's been ongoing.
I try to avoid diverging tracks on the main line unless I'm using a number 8 turnout. If I can use a number 8, it's not a problem there.
Do you do that? You try to stick with those larger turnouts, like on your home layout? What size are your turnouts?
Well, my layout, in my 16 by 13 space, Andy, my layout is 4 levels. Okay.
Mine is 2. Go to bed.
And what I did on mine is I have number 5s in the yard. All of them are number 6s, except on the curves where I use number 7s. But again, remember, I'm doing 1955.
Yep.
So I'm running RS2s, RS3s, F7s, 40-foot box. The longest car on my layout is a 50-foot box car that doesn't even have the right date on it. It's too new for my layout.
Yeah, 1950. I have a few of the brand new door and a half or double door auto box cars that were coming around at mine's 1950, predated yours by a couple years. Other than that, 36-inch 3-bay hoppers, 30-foot 3-bay hoppers, 28, 29, and 30-foot 2-bay hoppers. That's it. So you get away with a lot more, but I've opted for 8s everywhere on my main lines There's a few places it's the really tight areas where I have like 6 or 7 switches, and I did put a couple number 6s in there because I gave like 3 or 4 inches a piece.
Yeah, I'm right in the process now of designing an ON3 layout.
Oh, in 3 or 30?
Yeah, ON3.
Awesome. I like that much better.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can screen share this or not. Let's find out here. Let's see.
I have a serious narrow gauge curiosity. I keep threatening with all the other hangouts, talking to guys and saying I'm going to build me a shelf layout, in 3 eventually. It's just,
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, Bill.
Yeah.
Got one comment here. Let me get back over where I can read this. This is from Split Rock 323. What are your top industries to put on a layout for operation?
Well, I like to use mostly, again, you have to understand my clients. I'm going to try to bring up this ON3 I'm designing because it's a whole different ballgame. I try to use mostly Walthers because they're readily available. Every building on this layout here, except a couple, are Walthers. I think this blue building that you see right by the Amtrak station, I think that's a Rick's product or a Pike Stuff product there. Everything else you see on that layout is a Walthers, except for this little triangle-shaped building, which is going to be scratch built for the space it is. But I have an extensive library. I probably have between 200 and 300 Walthers buildings in my library that I'm able to drop into these plans. Now, I want to try to screen share this layout I'm working on here, and that I'm not quite sure how to do that. What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing
We've got probably 083 with the peninsula.
All right, so you are seeing that here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, this is one I'm working on. So this is pretty rough, guys, and that. But what the situation here is he had a big post right there that was a decorative post in there. This is a bedroom there. We're putting a staging yard with a turntable here because this is all going to be steam locomotives. Everything on this layout is going to be a Craftsman quality kit. This is all BTS stuff down here that I've put in it there. Try to bring that up a little bit. This is the BTS locomotive works here down in this corner. This here is the Dobson Creamery, which is a BTS product. There, every building. This is up here at the top here. That's the McCabe sawmill that I'm putting in.
That's incredible. I love that one.
Yeah, and so this layout is going to have probably, I would guess right now, $5,000 worth of structures on it because he's doing nothing but Craftsman quality kits are what is going to go on this thing when it's all said and done.
It don't take long to get that much money in wood kits.
What I designed for him here is this is a logging operation up here, and this is a 3.5% grade that's going to be run by a Heisler coming down. This is totally 3.5. How all this works over in this area, trains come out of staging, they go underneath both of these tracks, and then it starts to rise when it connects over here. These tracks all go over the top of that, which I think is going to make for a pretty interesting scene, because I'm going to tell him to do a tunnel here, right here, and I'm going to have him to do a trestle, a curved trestle, going over this track, because this track here starts downhill from right about here and goes downhill and goes underneath all of this into staging, where both of these tracks go uphill. They go upgrade there. And so this layout's going to have a tremendous amount of elevation changes going through it. Everywhere where there's a flat, all of this area up here is going to be flat. This is all going to be flat here, but there's going to be a pretty good height difference between this area here and say right in here, in this area. And now we're going to do a lot of elevation changes on this. Obviously down here where we've got the engine house, the turntable, the machine shop, and everything. That's all going to stay flat. That's going to be perfectly flat, that area. But this is what I'm working on right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bill. Phil Wyman asked, "What is the BTS kit?"
Oh, that's the name of the company. Just go. Better. What is it, Andy? Better than
scratch.
Better than scratch.
This is a BTS kit. It's not a BTS roof system, but it's a BTS kit. And they're relatively cheap, full interior. Some of them are. They have some good ones, but it has full interior, wood floors, and I mean they come with all the detail parts and stuff. I'm really fond of BTS, especially for the money. I mean, that's a $40 kit, and that's a good look at with the interior.
This building right here, this Dobson Creamery, I think it's about a $400 kit.
Well, especially at O scale, too. But
remember, guys, this is O scale. This is O.
Price goes up because they can't sell as much volume. O scale is going to be more expensive, but right. I love O scale too. But even at HO scale, BTS makes some pretty high dollar kits.
What we're going to do, and I've got to design it into this. This curve right here and this curve here is what's the first thing you're going to see when you walk into this room here.
Awesome.
And we're going to do, this is going to be a curved trestle, and this is going to be a curved trestle. And there's probably going to be the height difference between this track right here and this one here, probably going to be 8 or 10 inches difference in height. And that's going to be a neat scene when people come through that lift out.
Yeah, that hero seat or whatever you want to call it, that figure keystone seat as you walk in, and that has that kind of John Allen-esque effect of the tracks, up the mountain. That is just that narrow gauge replicates just so well.
And the only thing I don't like about this plan, and I would never do it if I was in HO because I would be able to make it differently. I don't like some of these straight pieces of track I've got here, like on the lumber area here. You really never ever seen straight pieces of track when you're talking about lumber railroading. But because this is O scale, because I don't have a lot of width to work with, he's going to have to live with these. And what we're going to try to do to hide them is I'm going to suggest right here, we're going to have a tunnel covering up this whole piece of straight track. So that it'll come into a curve, go into a tunnel, it'll come out of a tunnel, going into a curve. And I'm going to do some of the same thing right down here is we're going to cover up some of these straight tracks with tunnels.
But trees do a pretty good job of that too. For most mainline class 1 modelers, they try to hide the curves in tunnels. But for the narrow gauge or mountain railroad guys, you do the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm. But I think that the McCabe sawmill up here, this building is up in the upper right-hand corner. I think that building, I could be wrong, but I think it's about $600.
Yeah, even at HO scale, that's quite a few $100s because it's a fairly big complex.
It's a big building. This is all going to be this track right here is going to be the log dump. So I'll be putting in a lake here, and then I'm going to bring the lake down across over this track so that what's going to happen is this is a loading dock track here. There's going to have to be a bridge here because there's going to be water underneath it. So he'll have to actually build a little bridge because I'm going to bring the lake down into that area.
They're like a pile trestle, like
it'll be a pile bridge. It's a little bit.
Bill.
I see a lot of interest in operating that too. And you come up out of stage, you get to that yard, and you have the ability to run trains in each direction. One up to that little branch that goes up by the building with post road on it up to that little peak, load out up at the top, and you head out of the yard the other direction to service the other. It's got a lot of interest.
This is an engine house, and that's where the Climax or the Heisler is going to sit inside of there. And its job is going to be to simply take log cars down this and put them on this interchange here and bring empties back up to be loaded with logs. This is where the logs get loaded. That's where the logs end up eventually over there. So there's going to be operation here. But he wants this to be a display layout. He wants to display his buildings is what he's really interested in.
Bill.
Yes.
Can we go back? Jim's got a question on the layout that you had up previously.
Sure. Are we back to it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let me switch over here. I'm going to mute I can't mute myself. Okay, I guess people just got to put up with the echo for a minute.
We're not having an echo from you now. That's solved.
Oh, it is?
I believe so.
Okay. Jim's question is, train running counterclockwise. The operator is standing to the far east to switch a turnout. Then he has to run to the other side, west, then back to the east to switch a turnout. And he has to go through the lift out to do this.
Is he talking about the staging area?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I think Andy and I may have confused him on this. In the staging area, I would recommend that we use tortoises in there, and then on the front of the fascia, someplace along here, there would simply be a control panel that he can throw those switches, so trains can come out of the staging area.
Node matrix or DNC control panels, you can press a button.
It's just a matrix, right, with toggle switches that throw a couple LED lights, and you'll know exactly which way they're turned.
And you guys run back and forth a little bit with manual turnouts. That's a given, but
yeah, no, the idea here was, we put tortoises here, so once you're inside of here, you don't leave there, you don't come back out there. And if this view block is high enough, and that's what I envision this being high enough so you can't see over it there, then it's really simple. I have one on my layout because I've got hidden staging on mine that is truly hidden underneath another level. I've got cameras. I've got 4 cameras on my layout.
Jim's comment, he said, okay, but you had said no tortoises earlier.
Well, yeah,
so he was just wondering.
I lied, Jim.
Busted.
I got busted on that one.
Yeah, also, Big Bill, South Brooklyn Railroad had posted a link for the BTS. It's btsrr.com. So if anybody's interested, you can go to btsrr.com.
And they have some N-scale stuff, I think, and some S-scale stuff, and O-scale, a whole, but their biggest collection's HO. I love them. For the money, I love them.
Here's an interesting thing about them, which makes it hard to design, is when you go on their website, their website, everything is measured in the exact size of the building. It's 65 foot long by 53 foot wide. So you've got to calculate out how big that building really is, because they don't give you the dimensions. And when I'm doing design work like I'm doing, that's tough. It's easy with O-scale because all I have to do is take their measurements and divide it by 4, and it gives me the size of the building in O-scale. There.
Yeah. HO's slightly more difficult math.
Yes, it is. It's slightly more difficult math. That's exactly right.
I love that about S and O-scale for basically the same reason. S-scale has a similar mathematics that makes sense. If there was more stuff in S-scale, I think the world's missed out a lot in scales, because I think TT would be a better scale for people in very tight areas than N in a lot of ways, but it has no popularity in the U.S. And for large layouts, I think S-scale would be incredible.
And we've got a couple of guys in our club that do S-gauge, S-scale, and it's nice looking stuff. It is really nice looking.
And especially for narrow gauge. I have a certain affinity for S-scale in SN3 and for SN2 even.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, what I wanted to do with this, guys, was simply just show you, as much as I dislike donut hole layouts, either I was going to get paid to design one or he was going to go someplace else. So I bit the bullet, and I'm pleasantly surprised that it turned out as well as it did. I think it's going to be a fun layout to operate on.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, for the space he had, yeah, you did a great job of getting it to work.
For 7 foot wide, I mean that massively controls your options.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah, it was funny that this area where we put the car shop up here. Originally, I didn't have that. One of the things this gentleman did, and I'm really going to start kind of recommending it to a lot of my clients. He not only sent me pictures of the basement, he sent me a movie of the basement. So, and I was able to see this room, basically live. And I went back to him and I said to him, I says, over on the left-hand side there, I says, there's a bookcase, and then we've got about 3 foot of nothing. I says, could I use that 3 foot? He went to his wife, and she says, yes. So that's how we got from 22 feet to 25 foot. And that allowed me to put that car shop in, which I don't know what I would have done with that car shop. I don't think I would have ever been able to put it in if I wouldn't have come up with that. And that was one of his wants. That was one of the givens that he wanted on this layout, was a car repair shop.
And we got the trailer park, too.
And we got the trailer park. Absolutely got the trailer park.
Gotta have a trailer park.
But I'll blow that up so you guys. I even have the roads of the cars in there.
Yeah.
Well, somebody makes a really nice kit. I can't remember who it is for a little HO scale trailer. So,
yeah.
Rick's or somebody. I don't know.
Well, they're getting hard to find. My understanding is they're not as easy to find anymore, and that as they used to be. But and when you think about this, I even got the city scene into there, and I wasn't even. And I just started playing around with some of the buildings and that, and lo and behold, it looks like a city scene. It didn't need to be big. We didn't have a big layout here. But,
no, and you don't want to spend all your space just on buildings. It's got to be a balance. I love how you did that, and give you credit. There's a certain scene on Jim and Michigan's layout that you designed near the dock where that little city scene is. It's a little odd-shaped little thing that you could never get track into, and the design of it is gorgeous. It'll be a really cool scene.
Well, and then I think what'll look good on this layout too, if you're thinking about trains running, if somebody is standing looking down that street and the train comes across the tracks there. I mean, how many times have we seen videos, and we can kind of go back to the Alan McLennan's V&O. He would take a shot of looking up a street, Andy, and you'd see the train going by.
Yeah.
That are between buildings and that. And, again, I can't emphasize, guys, how much Alan influences what I do today. So,
there's so many he did. That video series that was done by what's his name of Great Model Railroad series by Alan.
Keller.
Alan Keller. I wore that VHS out. I mean,
I got another comment here, Bill, for you.
Sure.
Let me get back over here. Man, this is killing my trackball. Flipping through all these tabs. This is from Big Bill. Would you ever design a layout for a person who would just want to see rail fanning?
Well, yeah, I'm greedy enough. I probably would. But what I have done on probably a half a dozen situations, I've told them not to spend the money with me because there's hundreds of track plans out there that they can go copy that will just let them run trains, where they can just let the trains run around if they want to. I wouldn't be in this hobby today if that's all I just wanted to see trains run around the tracks, because that's, to me, it's all about operations, prototypical operations. And again, like Alan said, I'm designing transportation systems. I'm not designing model railroad layouts.
Well, you build a layout, you spend years and countless dollars building the layout, turn the trains on, let them run around a couple times, you're done, pack it up, go upstairs, watch TV.
That's exactly right. It gets so boring after a while. And that.
I kind of like the idea that Rob Pierre has done as far as what you might call rail fanning. He's built a diorama. It's got 2 sides but no view block. So he takes it outside.
Sure.
Picks a background, but he has it sitting up high enough to where when the camera's on tripod, you always see that one side. I think one side is like a seaport area, and the other side is more kind of inland. So depending on what he's doing, he just kind of flips this thing around. Plus, he's got dioramas. The buildings are. He builds some dioramas to where they're on the base. He could take them off of that and add a new building in.
Well,
just
look at Ken Patterson, what he does. He's always photographing outside and that with. Those are just modules, but those are big modules that he's building.
I bottled by it after I had seen his stuff, and I basically bottled by design after the way Ken Patterson does.
Absolutely.
It's not portable. You would want to throw it in a truck and haul it to trade shows, but I could move it. I got modules down here at eye level or down here at waist level, so I can work on them. And then they go back up at eye level. But I think the way Rod Perry or whatever, the way he's doing it, which I find so fascinating, and I back you up on, Johnny, and I think that's a modular standard called T-Track. I think it's called T-Track, where they run down both sides and, there's no backdrop.
Okay.
I think. I'm not sure he's building them to that standard, but there are people who do that, especially at end scale. And there's a track on each side of the layout. They go down, they put the balloon tracks on the modular setups. But the balloon track doesn't just turn around and send it back down like a single track main line like you would have on some of the other standards on like Freebo, but down the other side of the shelf. So,
yeah.
Have you designed a modular?
I haven't. I really haven't. I take that back. The gentleman I contract with to do designs. We have a gentleman that has 2 rooms, and he wants a toy train layout that runs through both rooms. Lionel, he's got a ton of Lionel stuff.
Sure.
And what I did is I designed the track plan based on modular units that are going to be built in a factory and shipped. The designs are going to be built in Tennessee, and then the modules are going to be shipped to Rhode Island and put together in Rhode Island. And I had very specific measurements to work with. So I guess that was modular. But toy train layouts are easy to build. I mean, they're easy to design because all they want them to do is run around and make noise and have lights flashing.
I've seen one high rail layout that was.
The high rail's different, Andy. That's a different ballgame.
What's that? That PNC layout?
Well, no, I said high rail layouts are different than what I call just toy train layouts.
Oh yeah, okay. This guy with it's 3 rail Lionel, 3 rail O-scale standard, a PNC layout that designed for operation, they operated, etc. But it is 3 rail. That's rare though.
Well, but if it was three rail using San Juan or using Ross turnouts,
or Gargraves, or
Gargraves. Yeah, I mean that's go if you want to get excited about prices, go check out Ross turnouts in O-scale 3 rail.
Yeah, $150, $130. Yep.
Yeah, it'll a double crossover is around $400 or $500.
Well, like the guy you were talking about on the O-scale layout that you showed the plan for, talking about how expensive those buildings were. And you defended his high-priced buildings, and then you said he was going to operate an ON3 Heisler. The man's got a few bucks.
That's right. Well, I quoted him a price to design the layout, and the first thing he said to me, "Is that all?"
Boy, don't that make you feel bad?
Yeah, it made me feel really bad. Yeah.
I forgot this other thing.
Well, the best part about it, he's a member of my club, and I had to give him a 15% discount on top of it. So, but no, it's going to turn out fine. But I like to design those. They're because I know what they're going to look like when they're done. That's
an interesting plan too. I see a lot of operational interest in that. And I can totally understand the fascination that, like Troy, for example, also he did a great job on his plan. That logging, narrow gauge logging, is how much operation you can get, how much interesting, fascinating, very realistic operation you can get in a very small area.
Well, and the other thing that's really good about it that I love is everything runs slow.
Yeah.
You aren't racing the trains around the room, is and that 25 miles an hour would be considered Indianapolis speed for a logging operation.
Well, that's why I opted for this section of track that I opted for. Clutch Valley District of the NW had a 25-mile-an-hour speed restriction, super tight tunnels, high trestles, and it's helper district. So just to run over the layout, you got to stop. You got to hook the helper. You got to stop at the top. You got to unhook the helper. You got to get up to speed. You got to slow down. It's stretch. Get the most time out of the dollar spent building the railroad you can.
Well, at John Parker's layout, there was 6 or 8 guys drove in from California to have an op session here in Colorado over 2 weekends ago. They operated on 4 layouts in 3 days, and we had a Friday night session at John's house. There was 20. I think there was 20 of us there. 8 of them was from these guys from California, and the first train started at 6:30. We finished running trains at 11:30, and I ran 2 trains in 4 hours.
And I was busy doing it.
I was busy. I was absolutely busy.
And that's when you're having a good time. If you try to speed everything up. Yep.
Yeah, Big Bill's got up here. Aren't switching layouts supposed to move slow, at least 10 miles an hour?
Really slow. Yep. 10, 15 miles an hour would be it.
The thing to remember is the guys running the trains are getting paid by the hour. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, Curtis Hunt put a comment up here. But what about the trains that go 400 miles an hour?
I don't design for those.
Yeah.
And that's not operational. That's
and then we got DeBob of DeBob's Man Cave. Gomez Adams is my hero, and why I run my trains fast.
And why he has a bunch of diamonds at random places. So,
yeah. Well, that's the great thing about this hobby is there's so many. It's so diverse. You can do whatever you want to do, and there's nothing right. There's nothing wrong with it. Even in my business here of designing these track plans. It's just a small part of the hobby, guys. I don't say it's the only way to go. It's what trips my trigger. It's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I think it would be for a lot of people if they tried it a little bit. I think the hobby's had a tendency to scare people away from operation, to make them think that it's so complicated. And it's not that you can't make it complicated if you get into all those details, but it doesn't have to be.
No. Well, the first thing John Parker and his layout has a pre-op session meeting that lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. And then he has a post session where we have to tell him what went right and what went wrong during our op sessions, because he needs to know that. We're talking about a 3,000 square foot layout here.
Sure.
Things that can go wrong, things that can happen.
Oh, well, Murphy will always get involved somewhere.
That's exactly right.
But that's how you improve them. And all the fascinating designs in my mind surrounding bench work and other technologies we use to build our layouts, what I find the most fascinating are those methods that let you change things. Because if you build a layout, a big layout, a reasonable size layout, it's going to take you a while, and things are going to change. So Elgirder was originally designed by Comback, and and their biggest thing they preached about it back then was how easy it was to change. If a girder was in the way, pop a couple screws, drop the riser, move it over, put another riser back.
Well, I'll give you a great example, Andy, and I don't know if you've watched his latest video there, because we're all kind of following what Sparky's been doing with his tragedy he had.
Yeah.
But he may be listening tonight, but that's fine. He was tearing apart his layout the other night in that video, and I start looking at it, and I'm thinking, he's built that whole thing out of 2x2s, and it looked like those legs were out of almost like 4x4s. And what I'm going to do is when he gets that room back in shape so he's able to build another layout, I'm going to have a little talk with him about let's you know, you don't need 2x4s. You can build that whole layout using 1x4s. Curtis Hunt can verify that, because Curtis and I went through that with his layout.
Well, John,
what 2x4 is it?
John's layout, they built that one, and wow, I could park my S10 pickup truck on it. He didn't have 4x4 legs, but he took 1x4s and made L's for the legs on that. He was kind of, his dad was kind of looking at this thing, and he goes, well, how you supporting all this? I said, angle braces going from the bottom of the layout back to the wall. And he says, really? I went, yeah, it's going to work. Don't worry about it.
But mine's all styrofoam. There's not a stick of wood in it.
Yeah, the only 2x4s we've got in that whole layout, Bill knows, is right down the peninsula. And that's it. They are there to help hold up the peninsula and support the view block, too.
And what you trade when you go to 2x4s and stuff is what you're trading in you're gaining in strength. You're trading in finesse or accuracy. A 2x4 is going to twist and bow, and you can't build all those structural supports it takes to keep that material square. A 1x4 will stay much truer as it dries out, and it is just a more true board. 4x4s are often trim quality. 2x4s are, designed to hide inside a wall. So,
well, think about this. If you're doing it with 2x4s, first of all, you got to be careful when you get out toward the outside edges, because you got the 2x4 out there. So that's going to mess you up with maybe where your track's going to go. And then invariably, you're going to end up with a turnout that you want to put a tortoise on that's going to be sitting over a 2x4 cross member. And what do you do then?
Oh, that's going to happen no matter what you put in there.
Yeah, but if you got a 1x4, you're okay. But if a 2x4 that you've already screwed and glued.
Yeah.
I don't like the glue. I like retaining everything to be. The only change I've had, the only constant I've had in all the railroads I've built, this is number 13, I've always wanted to change them, and they were always too complicated, too hard to make changes. So I ended up living with stuff and settling for it. In this layout, I'm not a bit to take a big brand knife and tear into it if I want something to be different.
Well, this is the photo. I'll bring this. Can you guys see that photo?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Up there? Okay. That's my bench work right there. You're not seeing a 2x4 anywhere. And that is extremely strong. Incredibly strong, and that whole bench work, you do see some screws, but all of this area up here, all of these cross members and everything, those are put together with a brad nailer and yellow glue.
Yep,
that's all I had to do.
Yeah,
don't get much stronger than quick glue.
Yeah, John's, we did screw his. I didn't use much glue on it, so. But we got great.
Just so fast.
Yeah.
The screws are better in a lot of ways, but doggone, you can build a lot of bench work quick with a little nail gun.
Yeah, I built these are 5 foot and 6 foot modules. I built them out in my garage, carried them downstairs, put them together.
Yeah.
Together real simple.
Oh, I was using the nail gun too. Brad nailer.
Yep.
Sean's put some of the stuff together, just made it quick and easy. So.
Well. Yep. On this here, Johnny, all I used the brad nailer for was to position the boards till the glue dried.
Yeah.
They really weren't there to hold anything. They were just there to keep it into position. So, yeah, I send this picture to a lot of my clients, because first, they don't totally understand L girder, and they say, how can you build a layout that is stable when you don't have any 2x4s? No. Yeah, I got 2x2s, but I don't have 2x4s.
Well, it depends on your methods and some of the things you're using. If you're building Colorado mountains with a lot of plaster rock castings, a little weight will add up with that. But for 98% of people and 98% of the layouts, or 98% of the size of any layout, it's not that heavy.
No, it's not. They constantly overbuild the bench work. Constantly.
Well, since you're talking about that, Curtis has put up here. Yep, I have over 30 2x4s, and lots of half-inch nuts and bolts, in that.
Is he trying to get rid of them? Good price. Good price.
Yeah. Big Bill's put a comment up. Operating or learning to do operation on the SPK has been a learning curve for me. The operation has been a great research tool as well.
Yeah,
He's talked about how much fun he's had numerous times. He put out a video where he was on a hangout talking about he went in for 2.5 hours just moving a little train around and having a blast.
Yeah, he's getting ready to have an op session. He's going to bring a friend over. At least that's what he was telling me. And he's going to they're going to run some trains. They're going to have their first official op session on the South Brooklyn.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Bill has a friend?
Bill has a friend.
Yeah. Love you, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's enjoyed that layout, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it come together. And amazing how quick it came together. I look forward to being retired.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill's had a good time with that. It was fun to design it for him.
He did. I really like his plan, and I love the few things that you've got to show off with that layout. How much you can do in a space, how big you can make something look in a small room. Things that I've taken special note to, specifically related to Bill's layout, is how large it looks when he has got the camera up at eye level looking around, because that view block, the division, makes that layout feel.
That's right.
And no
continuous running.
Continuous running.
Yeah, he's point to point.
Yeah, mine the same way. I could care less about continuous.
It's a funny thing, Andy, but it's hard to get. I say this to a lot of my clients, and it really doesn't hit home with them. A point-to-point layout is really a much truer prototypical layout than any layout where you put continuous running in it, because now you've got a model railroad. If you do point-to-point, you've got a railroad. You're operating a railroad. Yep. Much more prototypical.
Toy train versus prototype of some kind.
Well, look at Alan McClendon's. He took up the whole damn basement. Excuse my word there, but he did. He took up the whole damn thing, and it was all point to point.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at all of those of that era when that came out.
No continuous
Tony
run.
Foster's layout.
Yeah.
Huge layout.
Yeah. There was no continuous run.
And I don't really see the point in having a continuous run per se. I can see the point in having loops on each end to ease the turning of trains for staging reasons. And maybe you want that effect that Ken Patterson talks about so much, run by effect or whatever. He's just hanging out, working on stuff and wants the trains to run around. I can see the value in that. And if it doesn't hurt you to have a run around or to have loops on each end, sure. But I would have to make major sacrifices to make that possible on mine. And I won't make any sacrifice, because point to point is what I care about. And I know you feel the same way. So.
Well, what I'm trying to do with the hobby, and maybe badly, but I am trying to do it, is I'm trying to get people to stay in the hobby and stay enthused with the hobby and stay interested with the hobby once the layout is built. Because at some point it is going to get finished, and it's going to be completed. Now, what do you do with it? Just stand there and look at it?
Completed? I've heard tell of a completed model railroad. I don't know if I've ever seen one.
Well, but it does happen. It does happen.
It happens plenty in the hobby. If you find people less like me that don't want to always change something or aren't trying to, scratch build the telephones on the telephone boxes beside the right of way. So it could be done.
Yeah, it can be, but yeah, I think if we design them and they build an operating layout, I just think we'll keep them around for a while. I think they'll enjoy the hobby.
Here's the testimony. I love to look at the history. Look at what other people are doing. Don't make your decisions. Make your own call. But look at what's successful for other people. Look at the guys who have loop railroads out there. How many of them have the same railroad for 20 or 30 years and just improve it and do incredible scenery and all this other stuff? How many of those guys have loop railroads? They're all point-to-point operating railroads. Every one of them.
That's right.
And the guys who have loop railroads, tear them down and build another one. Tear them down and build another one. Tear them down and build another one.
Yeah, they're always, there's always going to be the better one is going to come along. And that. But,
yeah, that's when they go point to point.
Eventually, a lot of times it takes guys a little while to, and it's not that point to point's a requirement. If your 2 points come close together, then stick a run through track. Who cares?
Sure.
Just don't make sacrifices to get running.
Well, I think if you want to have a run through track so you can do continuous running, all it should ever be used for is to break in locomotives.
Yeah, I can see the value of that. I hadn't thought about that.
That's what it's for. But I don't know if these engines are so good today. I don't know if you need to break them in or not. They run.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, Miles has been to a couple of layouts now that they are built and set up point to point, but somewhere it's in a hidden staging or something like that. They have a couple of switches in there that does make it a runaround.
Right.
So if they're doing operations, like that last club that he did a layout tour at, last month or whatever, that's what they did. They had set up because they had some guys that just like do runaround.
It was loops.
So,
It had loops on both sides.
Yeah, they actually had the track and turnouts in there so they could set it and they could just run loops, like Andy was saying. And then when they did their op sessions, they just set the turnout so it became point to point. Yeah.
Well, Andy, wasn't that layout the hidden staging? Weren't those all just big reverse loops?
Yeah, essentially, they were all the staging was straight, was linear, but then it had a loop that come back by a run by on one side, and then on the other side it was 2 stacked loops, and the staging was completely in the loop.
Yeah, that's what it looked like when I seen it.
Yeah, and I got a picture of it too. That was a nice layout in general. And one thing to kind of force the issue of not having a through running layout is actually, if you get involved in operating and you've got car cards out there or switch lists or whatever method you're going to run your trains by, it's not exactly easy to just grab a locomotive and go out and do a bunch of damage to your layout before the guys come over. So it's kind of difficult to do it. Now, you can easily go pick a train up and go do the work that train is supposed to do. And then whenever your guys show up, you can just pick up wherever you have an operating train to do the job. But you can't just turn a train on and let it run to the other staging yard because it won't be where it needs to be when you actually operate it.
Well, if you remember what he said, which I thought was a great idea, is when they have the fun runs, they can run anything they want to run, but they can't move any cars from industries or things like that. They can just run trains. I think that again, that's the other part of the hobby. I design these layouts that run prototypically, but there's people that just want to see the trains run. That's all they want to do. I understand that.
And I can see the value in it. I'm not saying once my layout's fully run or set up that I won't occasionally turn a train on at one side, let it run all the way to the other side, tell JMRI to turn it off once it gets there because I want to sit here, kind of watch a train run by itself. But I can't see that much.
No, that's right.
And I would love to have loops on both sides. And if I could easily put a loop on each side, I would. But one of my staging is probably going to have a Y to turn equipment at, or a turntable.
My layout that I had when I had my ranch, it was stuck. I had 3 staging yards. All 3 were stub end, and I swore that if I ever build another layout, I would never build stub end staging. I design stub end stagings into some of the designs I do, but that's because I'm forced to do it. But like this little simple donut hole layout I designed, that double-ended staging I put in there, that's what makes or breaks this whole track plan from an operating standpoint.
Well, a lot of times people talk about a double-ended yard taking up too much space, but it does in a lot of ways most of the time. But in a staging yard, instead of having 2 staging yards, you could have 1.
That's
so
right.
In a way, it could be more effective. Speaking of yards, let me challenge you to one other thing that people might want to, food for thought or something to chime in about is is how do you feel about the requirement of integrating a yard into a layout design? Because, and let me quantify that, I have opted to not put a yard on my layout. It has a small interchange yard, but when you begin operate, I'd love to have one, absolutely love to have one. It was just going to cost too much out of the operation. So you begin operating trains just outside of yard limits. As they come onto the visible layout, you run them all the way through till they go off the visible layout, and you never begin or end the train at a yard.
Right. Yeah. What I just designed one maybe 4 or 5 months ago for a gentleman in Pennsylvania, I think it was, and it was all prototype. Matter of fact, I designed everything based on going on Google Earth, and just by sheer luck, I think it was, the town that he wanted to have modeled was right in the middle of the area we were talking about, and it had a three or four track yard, double-ended in the middle of this town, and then he was running east and west from that. So I just designed staging yards that were hidden at each end, but with reverse loops, so the trains could restage themselves without him touching them. But all of the switching, all of the stuff that was done visibly was in this little area on the layout of this town that had this yard where everything got switched in and out of there. And the rest of the layout just had track with a few sidings here and there, but that's the way the prototype looked. And that's what he was going after, was the prototypical way that it worked. And it was simple, but it was very, very functional when we got it done.
I want to jump in real quick. Curtis has a comment I'm not going to pass up. Well, when all's said and done, my layout is the best one. He did. Nah. Curtis also put the comment, yeah, I want to take my wife's yarn room. He guy's right there next to his layout. Come on. This chat is something else to learn how to operate this thing. It's loading up. Yarn room, yeah. Then Curtis said, LOL, she might load my body parts into the hoppers. Yeah.
Yeah. We got Curtis away from his 2x4s and his 100 and some lag bolts he had to take out of his whole layout. And I think we got him something he's having fun with. Curtis's biggest problem with me was, and I was very close to not designing for him because he had already went out and bought a bunch of stuff, and he had this room that wasn't that big. And the first thing he tells me is he's got a 6-stall roundhouse with a 130-foot turntable. And I'm supposed to put it in this room.
Yeah. Got a question here from Jim in Michigan. But if you don't have staging, you need a runaround track to exhibit length and time.
Well, that's true, but you need lots of runaround tracks to make any layout operate properly. This one that I've got up here on the screen, it's actually got a lot of runaround tracks. These two tracks here that look like a double main line, that's just nothing more than a runaround track that helps switch out these industries here on it. This area right up here is a runaround track that allows you to run around and get to each end of a string of cars there. And this yard lead, which is the yard lead is the inside track, the outside is the main line. That's nothing more than a runaround track. You've got to have a lot of runaround tracks on a layout. No question about that. This layout here would not operate very well for continuous running. And I didn't design it for continuous running. I designed it so that they could trains were running for a specific purpose, not just to be running around the layout.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
We're getting closer to 2 hours, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
I'm going to go ahead and take...
Well, we had a little shaky start, but that was kind of expected. Trying to get over all these hurdles to get it going again. be able to keep our shows running.
Well, I hope I didn't bore everybody. That was my biggest worry.
No, well, let me see here. Yeah, we had like 25, 26 viewers at the time. Because I'm trying to post this now like we will be after September the 12th. Get everybody used to finding that post, which really I think is going to make it easier for everybody because everything's kind of kept together there.
Good.
But yeah, I tell you what, Bill, great presentation. Thank you, sir.
Did the new microphone work out well?
Yes, that was excellent.
Great. Perfect.
Excellent. There was no popping this time in the audio. Yeah,
Great.
You could reset your mic and it'd work fine. Then all of a sudden, here come the pops again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hated having to ask you to just keep resetting, so I just let it go for a while.
This is only a $40 mic, but I think it's working fine.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's working really good. So I tell you what, while I'm here in the Q&A, before I get lost again, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the Q&A. David, Curtis, Jim, Phil. Let me run up the line here. Big Bill, appreciate you being in here too. We got some new people. DeBob at DeBob's Man Cave, appreciate you coming in tonight. Split Rock, it's good to see you back in here too. I think we had another new guy here. I'm trying to find his name, scrolling up through this chat here. Justin Trains. Yeah. Thank you, Justin, for coming in. Hope you enjoyed the show. And Tariq Sykes. Hope you're still in there listening. Have not seen Tariq in a long time. Dunk on dunks. So I hope you're doing well, Tariq. I know you were moving out west from New York. We'll have to get Bill to send you some can't think of bagels. Yeah. So you don't miss your New York bagels. Ron Heiser, appreciate you coming in. And Tony. All right, let's get back over here. I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in tonight's show. And let everybody know you want to go to the YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check on the schedules for the Tuesday night presentation. And the maybe I need to do this, be a little more professional transition here. All right. Oh, I know why now. Anyway, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. Yeah, I'm still learning this. I'm having to bounce around all over the place. Check on your schedules for the Tuesday night presentation. Which one, who's presenting for that particular Tuesday. If it's Gino show, Barry show, we're going to have Bill the track planner or Miles Sale with his layout tours. And then Thursday night hangouts, of course, there's no schedule there. It's every week. You get to look at my ugly face all the time, at least every week anyway. But the live show is once a month. All the shows that we have, Tuesday, Thursday, and the Saturday live show, they're 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, so check your time zone. So you'll be able to hit the show at the right time. You won't miss it. But, hey, if you do miss it, we record them. You'll find them on the YouTube Model Builders YouTube channel. We have them in playlists, the Tuesday night, Thursday, and the Saturday night show. We got a new special coming up this month, this September the 17th. As the baseball fans would say, it's going to be a doubleheader at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Central Time. We are going to have a special show with Kathy Millett over in England. You know, talking about her modeling and how she got into the hobby and it's going to be a good show. Bill got her to sign the contract in blood, so we got her set up for the Saturday show. And then Saturday evening at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, you're going to have the regular scheduled Saturday Night Live show. Also, at YouTubeModelBuilders.com, you want to check the EMAG and click on it. There you can sign up for notifications for the EMAG. When it comes out, you'll get it. You can come back to the website or click on the hyperlink, and it'll take you to the EMAG. You can download it. It is a PDF file. It can be read on a wide variety of devices nowadays. So no matter where you're at, you're not without your EMAG. Real good resource. Got some really good articles in there. Big Bill the Track Planners does a regular article. Andy here does an article. Gino's got an article. And my feeble mind's going blank now. Somebody won't step in and tell me who else is doing an article there.
And Bill Barodic there, of course.
Yeah, Track Planner. Yeah.
A really good one every time. His is a large feature article. That takes quite a bit of work because it's numerous pages every time.
Yeah.
There's the Ed Scaler does one.
Yeah.
And then Harry's UP Hub.
Yeah.
That's the ones I can remember.
But JD needs to get all the credit because all I do is write the article and give him the pictures. JD puts it all together, guys.
And he dives in on everything you do. So if anybody wanted to write an article, all you've got to do is put anything close to a fluid thought, very grammatically incorrect. I'm going to make JD's life worse by giving him some work, but he turns a concept into a finished product every month for me.
Yeah.
As I tell people, I would like to see these YouTube shows get as good as the magazine is. Then we've accomplished something.
Yeah, we'll get a better paycheck than JD.
Then we'll get a better paycheck.
Yeah, but JD's not getting the travel expenses to go do that European show, the per diem and all the stuff it takes to go to Europe. So that's the perks.
All right, so be sure to go to YouTube Model Builders and check out the website. Check your schedules out. All our shows are at 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, so check your time zone. The special show that we're going to be doing, that is special because it will be 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern, and that will be September the 17th, and the guest on that show will be Kathy Millett. She is a very good British modeler. She's making a name for herself, is doing a great job at it. I think everybody's going to enjoy the show for that. And with that said, Andy, thank you for all the help you've been to me on this, keeping these shows up and running and helping me through the kinks here. Bill?
Yeah, you got all the hard work.
Bill, appreciate it. Another great
I think
show.
you did a good job, Johnny. I think you did great.
Yeah. Next time, can I get a few more sprinkles on my donut?
No problem. No problem at all.
Okay, let's see. Where's the... Oh, there's the stop button. All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a good week. Be safe. We'll see you Thursday night. And have a good one. Bye.